Hello, welcome to Chelsea's Book Nook. I thought that I would start reviewing the books that I read here on YouTube because sometimes I find it easier to um, discuss my thoughts and opinions verbally rather than typing it up. But I also still like to use Goodreads for my reviews. So for this first episode, I'm going to review The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. It's an older book. Most of the books I read are older because I just can't keep up with everything that gets published. So I'm always years behind. So this one is copyright 1997. So 20 years old, but that's okay. So The Red Tent is about the daughter of Jacob, Dinah, Jacob from the Bible, and the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah, and then the story of Joseph and his 11 brothers is told through Dinah's eyes. And I really like that that Anita used such a, I guess, distinct character to tell a well-known biblical story, because Dinah's only mentioned once or twice in the Bible when she's born, and then again when she marries a man that her father and brothers don't approve of. So, first I want to talk about how biblically accurate Anita's storytelling is. And I'm not doing this in a critical way, it's just more of a discussion way because I'm a historian, and so historical accuracy is always interesting to me when it comes to historical fiction. So it starts off with Dinah retelling how her father met her mom and his other 3 wives. And what's interesting, the first obvious difference is that in the Bible, Jacob had to work for 7 years to marry Rachel, and then he was given Leah, and then he had to work another 7 years for Rachel, so a total of 14 years. In The Red Tent, he only works for a few months until Rachel becomes a woman, meaning that she finally starts her period. And then he is given Leah, and then he gets Rachel a couple weeks later. So there isn't a prolonged 14 years in this version compared to the Bible, which is fine. That's not really a big deal. Another difference from The Red Tent and the Bible is the Bible portrays that Jacob didn't know that Leah was his bride. It's in chapter 29 of Genesis. So I'm reading from the King James English version of the Bible with LDS footnotes. And it says, and Laban gave unto his daughter Leah, oh wait, where are we? Oh, and it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Skip a couple verses. And it came to pass in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he, meaning Jacob, said to Laban, What is this thou hast done unto me? Did I not serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And even when I was a young girl and learning this story for the first time, I remember thinking, how would he not know it was Leah? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, yes, maybe at the dinner if she was covered, but her and Rachel had to have a pretty similar body shape and size for him to be fooled. And on top of that, once he got in the tent, I mean, did he really just have sex with a, like, she never took her clothes off, she never showed her face? That has never made any sense to me. And so I love that Anita does that in her book. She Jacob is not surprised that it's Leah, and he knows that it's Leah when he goes into the tent, and he and Leah decide, because Anita has Laban be a really terrible man. He abuses his daughters, he abuses his female servants, he abuses his wives. And so Leah wants to get back at her father for being an awful man, and so her and Jacob plan on making a big scene when they come out of the wedding tent, and so that Laban can be embarrassed and Rachel can join them. And so I really liked that, because I've never bought the whole that Jacob was fooled on the night of his wedding. I've never believed that. And so it sounds like other women don't believe it either. And I do like that and then also Rachel, he marries Rachel within a couple weeks after marrying Leah in Anita's version of the story, and they both become pregnant at the same time. But Rachel has miscarriage after miscarriage, and Leah has all of her sons that are listed in the Bible. And I thought that was an interesting way for Anita to tell the story of Rachel's barrenness, because all we know in the Bible is that when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. But barren can mean a lot of things. It can mean that you have miscarriage after miscarriage, or it can mean that you never even get pregnant. And so Anita chose to go the miscarriage route for Rachel, and that was definitely eye-opening and interesting. And then another thing that Anita did that I liked was she had the handmaidens, Bilhah and Ziplah, be Laban's daughters as well, but they're from his concubines, not his actual wives, so they're not like legitimate daughters, which is why they're handmaidens. But so they're all literally sisters and sister wives, these 4 women are. So that was interesting. So they have a familial connection and a matrimonial connection, and they raise their children together and they love each other. Leah and Rachel do have struggles, since they were supposed to be the main wives, and Leah is the first wife because she was the first one that married Jacob, and that did upset Rachel. And then also the fact of Rachel struggling to keep a child full term. But they all do love each other, and they all take care of each other's children, and it was a really cool expansion on this story. And so that's the first part. The second part is about once Dina is born, and she is like only a year or 2 older than Joseph, the way Anita writes it. And so Dina and Joseph are best friends, and they're called milk siblings because Anita had it that Rachel couldn't nurse Joseph. So Leah nursed Joseph for Rachel as well as her own child, Dina. So Dina and Joseph are best friends, and they get teased and bullied by their older brothers. And then when Dina grows up, they're living outside of a city, and she is called into the city with Rachel to help with the delivery of the king's concubine. The king's concubine is having a baby, and they want a well-known midwife to help, and Rachel, in her years of barrenness, practiced midwifery, and she takes Dinah along with her. And Dinah meets the king's son. Well, he has lots of children. Dinah meets the king's heir, the son of his wife, the queen, and they fall in love. And so this is the Shechem, or he's Shechem in the Bible, but his name is Shalem. The city is Shechem in the red tent, and his name is Shalem in the red tent, and in the Bible his name is Shechem. So Shechem / Shalem and Dinah fall in love, and the queen kind of brings them together, and they consummate their love. And so then the king heads out to Jacob and says, our children have consummated their love, and I want to offer you a price for your daughter to officially marry my son. And Jacob is upset, but so in Anita's version, Jacob is upset, but he's also not sure, like, he can't make up his mind. He doesn't say no right away or yes. He says he has to consult his sons, which is odd, but that's what he does. And his sons have a huge uproar about the whole thing because they're jealous that Dinah is going to live in riches and become a queen, and they have to work their butts off as shepherds. So that's where they come up with the idea of forcing all the men of the city to become circumcised and then murdering them when they're too weak to defend themselves. And in the Bible, that's where Dinah's story ends, but in the red tent, that's where her story really takes off. And so her brothers carry her back to the family tents, and she lays a curse on her father and all of her brothers and goes back to the city. And the manservant of the queen finds her, and the queen and her manservant take Dinah to Egypt. Foreshadowing, right? Take her to Egypt, where they took her with them in hopes that she was pregnant, and she was. So this is all completely now fictional and imaginary because there's no more information about Dinah in the Bible. And so they take her to Egypt, and where she has her son, and it's actually really sad because even though she's basically just his biological mother, she has no say in how he's raised, and she's basically she's not a servant, but she's not a true family member in the house either. She's just kind of there because she's his biological mother, and that's it. And so it's actually really, really sad, this next part of the book. And she doesn't really get a life back until her mother-in-law dies, but at this point her relationship with her son is just not even a relationship, and so he just is off living his own life, and she has to figure out how to live the rest of her life in Egypt. And I won't give away the ending, but I mean, the book is 20 years old. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. She does have kind of a reconciliation with Joseph. Like, she runs into him and learns his whole story of being sold into Egypt and all of that. That's in the Bible. But for them having been best friends as children, like, once he learned she's there, I thought he was going to, like, have her live with him in his nice house and his family, and that was totally not the case. And so I was a little disappointed in how Joseph was written. I don't know. I guess as a believer in Christianity, I want the good guys in the Bible to be good always, but that's not the case. And so I understand why Anita wrote Joseph the way she did, because the focus is supposed to be on Dinah and on the plight of women in general. So, but Dinah does find love towards the end of her life, and she meets a wonderful man and gets married again. She doesn't have any more children, but she kind of has like adopted children. Like her friends' grandchildren are like her adopted children. She's a second mother or grandma to them. So she does die happily, and she's greeted by her 4 moms, and they're all proud of her and they all love her. So it ends all right, but it definitely was a difficult story in the sense that there's so many sad moments for our main character. Not to be too critical, but there are a few parts that I didn't like, and when I say I didn't like it, it means I don't feel it was necessary for the story, because sad and angry parts are necessary for stories. So when I say I don't like something, it means I don't think it was necessary for the story. And all of the unnecessary parts were actually at the beginning, so I almost didn't finish the book because I was like, where's this going? So when Jacob is waiting to be able to marry Rachel before he knows that Leah is going to be the one he marries, and while he's working for Laban, like, he pleasures himself because he can't wait to have sex. And, sorry, that's my daughter. She just woke up from her nap. And then basically all of the male characters are like sex driven, and so like all of Laban's male workers rape the sheep on a daily basis, and I just thought that was unnecessary and it didn't contribute to the story at all. What I did like